y'all. It's the Stand on Your Business podcast with your host, Nina Gonzalez. And
I am Natasha Robinson. Thanks for joining us. Stand on your business because we want you guys to stand on your business and start early. It's already time to start prepping for 2024, guys. And today, I want to introduce our guest, Mr. James Morris. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you going to help us stand on our business today.
My name is James Morris. I am an economist for the federal government by trade. I'm a real estate investor. I'm a children's book author. I'm a father of 3, and I'm coaching basketball and softball. So I'm a mix.
Awesome.
wait, how do you have time to coach?
You know what? You make time for what's important to you.
Say it again.
You know,
Yep.
I enjoy doing it. So I prefer to do that over everything else.
Awesome. You just said you make time for what's important for you, right? So we want everybody to make some time and focus on some budgeting. Talk to us a little bit about yourself, but bring it back to how you can help all of us get ready for the holidays and not overspend.
All right, awesome. So I'll tell you something about me. I grew up, my mom raised me, single parent, and I was always focused on how much she made and versus how much it costs for us to live. So I went to Chicago Public School, Bogan High School. Okay. Shout out to the Bengals.
Hey.
But what I figured out was it cost me, because we had reduced fare, 50 cents to get to school. It was 50 cents for lunch, for reduced lunch. It was 45 cents to get home. So I knew $1.45 times 5 was $7.25. Multiplied by 4 was $29. So I knew the cost to be me in high school was $29. All right. So my uncle was an entrepreneur, and he owned a car wash on 67th and Ashland. So I used to work down there on the weekends, and I would make anywhere from $70 to $80. So on any given point, I knew, like, if I'm making $300 to $400 a month, it only cost me $29.
Right.
So therefore, I'm more about, if you make a certain amount, you can spend 30%, you can save 70%. Now, that may be hard for most people, but in reality, if you're watching what you spend, then it should be kind of simple.
So
Can
say
you
that
repeat
again.
those percentages one more time?
So you said spend 30% and save 70%.
Right, and
Wow.
then take it a little bit further and not just save 70%, invest a portion of that.
Yeah.
Because if we put 70% in the bank, it's going to earn 0.01%. And inflation right now is about 4%, which means you losing money by having it parked in the bank. But that's why the stock market or real estate is thriving. I'd rather have my money parked into real estate because of the tax benefits and the appreciation and the cash flow. So an example, what I just posted was I waited 12 months on my job to get a raise, but waited 30 days to get a raise from my tenant.
Nice. Because you control the destiny of your raise in that situation.
Yes.
Right.
Now, what do you think about, so you are raised of people who had businesses, right?
Yes.
And I'm from the west side of Chicago. I was lucky enough for my family to have property, but they lost that property due to not paying their property taxes, which was inherited. It wasn't something that they worked for. It was inherited from their parents. So do you think that because you were privy to be around people that own property and businesses, that maybe gave you a foot forward in the difference between why people struggle today?
I would say yes. And I would say that my uncle, he was one of 13, grew up in Mississippi. And he would always say, like, you don't know hard work unless you worked in the cotton fields. And I picked cotton. So when he came in here, he drove for UPS and he bought his first property, which is on 78th and Hoyne, for $38,000. That property is worth well over $400,000 right now. I watched that property move him out to South Holland before blacks was living in South Holland. And then he came back to Inglewood and he opened a car wash, then a restaurant, then a hair salon, then a clothing store. And I'm getting ready to go off to college and I'm 17 standing in this car wash and I'm like, man, you got some words of advice? And he was just like, I showed you the blueprint. He's like, I left you a trail. And he said, if you're not a millionaire by the time you're 35, you never wanted to be one.
Wow.
Because you was exposed.
I
You
was
were
exposed.
Yeah.
And then that exposure, what it also done was it showed me I was never into having the flashy cars because I worked at a car wash. I drove every car that was out there.
Right.
Okay.
And I saw all the homes, all the big homes. So I was just like, all right, this is attainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you think about, so we're on Stand on Your Business podcast. For those of you guys who don't have an uncle who owns businesses, today you have Mr. Morris, right?
Yes.
So he talked about the 30%, 70%. I know for a fact, because I am a loan originator, our debt to income ratio for qualifications on a property is generally, I would say 50 to 56% back end ratios. What that means, debt to income ratio is your debt versus your income, right? So we are allowing you to go to 56% in spending.
Right.
And we don't know about your light bill.
Right.
We don't know about your gas bill,
Cell phone,
your gambling
childcare.
habit, if you smoke whatever or drink whatever or whatever you do on your side, or if your kids go to Catholic school. We don't know about all of that stuff when we are originating.
Right.
So the system allows you to start off wrong from the beginning,
Right.
which I think is what the real problem is, because honestly, I haven't heard the 30-70 rule. You know what I'm saying? And I think that had I known that, I would have a lot more savings. So how can someone get to that point if they're constantly check to check? And as far as you're concerned, what made you say, I want to add up what my debt was so I can know
What it costs to be me.
exactly?
Right. For me, it was more about what I wanted in life. And I know I didn't want to work for the money, and I wanted the money to work for me. But I think a lot of people are afraid of kind of opening up and kind of investigating. So I have friends that are football fans, and they can tell me everything what's wrong with the Bears. Offense need to do this. Defense need to do this. They need to break
What's
down
up with
all
our
the plays.
QB?
But what they're afraid of doing is breaking down what they need to do. So you, the CEO of your life, like what changes do you need to make? You know, and you need to understand what it costs to be you and how much you're spending and how much you're making. So a lot of times, if it's a money problem, maybe you're overspending. But with social media, we think things come quick, and it's all about the glamour and the glitz, but not the grit that's behind it and how it, how you got there. So what I'm actually just looking at, I just want to know, like, hey, if I lost my job, can I survive?
Wow.
And if I lost my job, how am I going to replace that? And I automatically know real estate, book sales, real estate coaching, child mentoring. Like, you can go on and on and on, but it has to be something you're passionate about, and then it doesn't feel like work.
And
Exactly.
you create those other revenues. But to go back to what you said about spending and saving, I've budgeted. I think and I'm being so transparent with you guys, right? Because we're bringing you on this journey of standing on our business. I've budgeted my life that if I don't do a certain amount of numbers, I'm not struggling.
Right.
But I feel that has also pushed me to feel so comfortable because I've told this to Natasha. I got 2% on my house, 2% on my car. And I've made my bills that if I sneeze, I could pay them.
Yeah.
But I think that's put me it's limited me and put me in a corner where and I have capability to do everything else. I just don't do it because.
It makes sense. And you know what it is? It's time for you to change your circle. So then it's exposure. So I'm at an event out there in Rockford, and it was a fundraiser event. And I'm overhearing some gentlemen talk, and they talking about engines. And I'm just like, man, you know what? Like, I never heard of those engines that they talking about.
Okay.
And then as I'm listening, I'm like, I know a lot about cars. My uncle had a car wash. I know about engines. They talking about the engines in their jets.
Wow.
Nice.
And that's my other uncle who built a house in Manteno, Illinois. And when he looked around, he saw them building a lot of other smaller homes around him. And he said, I got to get out of here. Not because he didn't want to be around small homes, but the fact that was hurting his appreciation of value of his home.
Decrease his value. Okay.
So then he went and built an $18,000 house in Moni, and everybody out there have hangars on
You
their
said
homes.
18,000.
18,000. 1,000 square feet.
Oh, I was going to say.
18,000 square feet.
So now he's in a subdivision where people have planes and they fly to work. And that is that exposure. And then it's just like, oh, it's more to attain. So I like to shuffle. And as I'm talking to my children last night, my phone rang and I get irritated. It's 8:17. Who's calling me? And she's like, why don't you want to answer the phone? I was like, because I can't help that person right now.
Right.
They looking for a rental. I'm not going to find them a rental tonight. They're not going to get qualified tonight. And I'll deal with this tomorrow. I have a system in place that the call get missed. It's going to send them a text message of the listings. and then they apply for it. And I shut it off.
Wow.
Gotcha. So I didn't know you did that. So you do rentals.
I do rentals, and I love it for one, because two, you can help someone. Number one, you can make a lot of cash and you're in control of it. And it's something, because I'm always about the generational wealth, it's something I can pass on to my children. So they understand and they see the rentals, so they walk the properties with me. They can run the numbers and they know what makes sense.
How many doors do you own?
I'm at 56.
Ooh. Nice. Is your area of concentration and investment here in the metropolitan Chicagoland area?
The majority are in Chicago, and I've been living out in the Rockford area for like 11 years, and then I have doors out there also.
Nice.
Now, do you think you accumulated most of your doors in the past 5 years, or did you kind of do it over a decade or a decade and a half?
I accumulated more since the pandemic.
Wow.
Because when I first started off, I bought my first property when I was 24, and I didn't even really want that many properties. I was like, I'll just probably just get me 3 properties and then I'll be good. And then I started looking around, I'm just like, you know what? I'm becoming complacent. And complacent is just like death. And I was just like, hey, I need to grind a little bit more harder. And then I gave it purpose. And then when I started having children, I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a property for every child. Wow. And then I was just like, that's not enough. Like, you got to think a little bit broader than that.
You got a new circle.
Right.
They got engines that for jets, not for cars.
Yeah. So it was just more about the exposure. And then as you look around people, and it's not that you're in competition with them, but you're running your own race.
Inspiring.
But it is inspiration, and it makes you grind a little bit harder.
Right, and we got to kind of, and I always say bring it back, but people that are watching the podcast, I'm going to say this a lot of times in the podcast, we created this podcast because we want to stand on our own business, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a loan officer. I've made a lot of money, right? But I wasn't doing 70-30. I'm not doing 70-30. I think I did get to the point where I started taking 25% of my paycheck, putting it into my savings account. And then I started feeling like I was carrying more debt. Like, even though I was saving here, I was taking it from here. So I felt like I was kind of still washing myself out.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is kind of figuring out, like, as we go through this journey of standing on our business and we go through this journey of trying to figure out which way we're going to go, that's what we want you guys to do too. So like he mentioned, what is the cost of living? How much does it cost you to be you? And not just the cost of you to be you. I think the next step, which is I learned from Jamal's program, is how much does it cost to be the person you want to be?
Right.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
So then once we
Thanks
can
for
get
bringing
those
that back.
2 things together, now we start working towards it.
Right.
And what I did was I had to make some steps backwards. I don't know if you guys know, but loan officers are probably making 50% of their pay right now with the interest rate hike and all of those things. So I had to sell my Range Rover, you know, and I didn't have to sell it. I can afford it, but I want my bank account to increase every month.
Right.
Not decreased.
In addition to that, I basically took all my costs, took some of my savings, paid all my debt, because my debt was costing me $2,200 a month.
Right.
So now I'm saying, how much does it cost me to live every day to the point where I can reposition my life? And I think Instagram is killing us. It was killing me. Like, literally, I would watch all these people on Instagram, and I would go home and I would call my best friend, and she'd say, you got to stop watching Instagram.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel like you're not doing enough. You need to do more. And I am in my season of being grateful for what I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we want to share with our audience. Like, you got to look at what you currently have, be grateful, and celebrate your wins. Like,
Take care of what you got like it's the best you ever gonna get.
Exactly.
But reach for more. You know?
always.
You made an interesting point about, and we talked a little bit about, we see it on, let's not just say Instagram, we see it all over social media, and people think that it's an overnight success, and it's really not, right? So can we expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, instant gratification. I recall, like, when I got out of college, I wanted to get a job, but a job that allowed me to do other things. So I was working 2 jobs. So the money that I wanted to go out with, that was my part-time job.
Oh, wow.
So It was during the time, like, hey, fresh out of college, I used to carry my own flask. Like, hey, I'm not buying your expensive drinks. I got my own drinks. Give me like a little Coke
Fake
or
it till
something
you
in a
make
cup. You know? And you were getting in the clubs like when it was free before 10. You used to go to always River West, or where I think that was the name of it up north.
River West, River North.
Yeah. But you can look at it and it can say, hey, I may want that, but you have to go at your own pace. So even if you can't do the 30-70% rule, if you just put $50 aside every paycheck, that's $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. And then in 3 years, you got $3,600. And then you match that with a first-time home buyer grant, whether it's $7,500 or whether it's $30,000, and now you're in your first investment property. Mm-hmm. If people tell me, hey, my credit is not good, I say, oh, well, who needs a credit score? You got a NACA program. We got authorized users that we can add to the account. So now what's going to be the next thing? And a lot of times people will tell me it's more so I don't have the money to invest into real estate. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the property either. But if I can show you the property and I can fix your credit, you still got to find the property. Mm-hmm. And then you still got to find the right property. And then you still got to make sure that your offer is even accepted. Yeah. So you worrying about too much, find the property.
That's an excellent point. So first it starts off with preparation. Now, how would you counsel somebody on step one when it comes to budgeting? Because sometimes Natasha and I, we encounter this. People don't know how much they make.
They don't.
I got people, they don't even know, they don't even look at their pay stubs. They don't even know where to get their pay stubs from. Yeah. So they're like, oh, just check it on my direct deposit in my bank statement. But I'm like, well, how do you know that your check was right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Faith. They live in our faith.
Exactly. I deal with tenants, and the question I ask them is just like, what is your net income? And they be like, what? Net? Gross? No, net. Like how much, like after everything is taken out. Yeah. And they be like, well, I don't know. I'm like, really?
So
like,
so how should they know? Like what steps should they take to know how much money they make, and what tactics should they go through to make sure that they check stubs are correct and they know they're getting paid properly? Because I did just have a client and they owed her 30 hours on her check, and as her loan officer, I had to tell her. You
gotta, as they say, you gotta mind your business. Like you stand on your business, you gotta mind your business also. So before I work with anyone, I send them a spreadsheet. I also send them to annual free credit report online. Okay. Download your free credit report, look at it, because you can contest some things, right? Mm-hmm. Like you may have some late payments on there, and then I send them a spreadsheet, add up all your liabilities, add up all your assets, and then let's start trimming.
What's liabilities?
Liabilities is debt that you owe, and it's a good debt and it's bad debt. And I say good debt could be real estate or money that you're using, or debt that you're using to make you money, but a cell phone bill is bad debt, your shopping habits, bad debt,
I mean, but we need cell phone. I think cell phones, I disagree with you there, only because I think cell phone is now a utility. So cell phone is now a utility because there isn't any,
But do we say bad debt because I don't mean to.
No, but I think what he means, to clarify, is like we be upgrading these phones, and now your cell phone bill, instead of being 80, 90, 120, you got a 250, 300.
You got to get that $1,200 iPhone every time it come out.
Yeah. I didn't upgrade yet. I'm so proud of me.
Yeah. But I started trimming. So like cable, like everything is streamed now. You can get Netflix, you got YouTube, TV. Like, why are your cable bill $250?
Yes.
So I would just say like, hey, what if we scale that back? And I found you $150 there.
Oh, wait, did you hear that? Scale that back. We can do that with everything that's that's on your spreadsheet that you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Or just like when people going into the office, like take your lunch. Like I just went and got lunch and it was $15. I was like, yo, if I had to do this 5 days a week, that's $75.
Oh, we do, and it's more than that when you order it on DoorDash.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You got a $20 premium just to get it in the door.
Right. So it's the small things.
And I say that a lot. I've said that in the past. I think everybody talking about they don't got money, but after I view bank statements, Natasha as well, and our team, everybody has been Ubering, eating, door dashing, their down payment.
Yeah.
They're door dashing their down payment. They're Ubering their down payment.
We gotta stop with the door dash and the Uber.
Yes.
My son taught my mother-in-law how to do it, and I can imagine, like, we're getting McDonald's delivered. Like, I don't even want cold McDonald's. I want my fries right out
Yeah.
the grease.
Right,
So it's like we're DoorDash, we're Uber and everything, and all of that stuff costs. But I think that writing everything down, and I won't go over my exact numbers, but I think that people should just write it down. I wrote down how much money I was spending.
Yes.
And I didn't just write down what I thought my bills were. I wrote down off of my credit card statements. And you know what I found? Almost $600 worth of stuff that I can actually cancel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. That's the clean out.
Yes.
So what are you spending that you don't need to be spending?
Ooh, the clean out phase.
What should you have canceled?
Right.
And then start there. And what I did was I just canceled all my credit cards and got new ones.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like calling on those people back.
Call them.
So I canceled everybody. I don't let another transaction go through, and whatever I needed, I'll just reinstate. But for the person that's outside listening, I think that first step is just figuring out how much your bills cost every day and how much do you need to make those bills work. Now, my good girlfriend, I did it for her, and she was never going to make it.
Yes.
Wow.
Because she didn't make enough money.
Right.
So every month she was starting all over, sad every month. And I did all her bills for her. I'm like, you don't make enough money for this.
Yes.
Right? So then the next step, I think, is confidence, right?
Right.
We settle for jobs. So if you are not making enough money, if your bills are $1,000 a month and you are only making $800 a month, then you create a resume and you look for a job, and now you ask for $1,200 a month.
Right.
And you keep going every single day until you can balance that out. Because what you're never gonna do is catch up is if your debt is more than what you make. So whatever you can get rid of, it's embarrassing to downgrade your car. It's embarrassing to not have the Gucci or the Chanel bag when all your friends is, maybe, but it's more embarrassing to not really be able to afford it or to be losing your house because you were trying to keep up with Instagram. And a lot of these people on Instagram, guys, I don't know how much money they're really making to be able to accomplish these things, because based off their jobs and what they do, it doesn't add up to what they're showing.
There's enough accounts out there exposing people.
Yeah.
There is, I found an account yesterday. I'm not going to mention any names, but they exposed him. It was like ridiculous. They got him recording, going into a rented manufacturing factory, stating that it was his. And he has people buying stuff from him, trying to rent space the whole time he doesn't own it.
Right.
So he's renting a space as storage, and he's fronting like he owns the whole place.
Yeah, and you gotta own you. You gotta own your life. And
own you. Say that one more time, girl.
Own you, girl.
Own you. Okay.
And you gotta use what you see on Instagram to help as a vehicle to expose you to see where you need to go. But before you just jump out there, you have to set up that plan. And that's why we have James here, because we want you guys to have a plan in place so that way you can get to the next level.
Yeah.
And when I called James, the first thing I told James, I said, James, it's about to be Christmas. And you know what's gonna happen around Christmas? Everybody wants to fill that tree with 40% of the things that those kids are gonna break that day, or never play with again after Christmas, or somebody's gonna take and throw in the back. How many wallets and hats and sweaters can you really continue to buy somebody?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Christmas and how our clients that are watching, our followers that are watching, can save, and how they can be aware that Christmas is not the season to go into debt before the year starts.
Yes. I mean,
Christmas
for real.
is the season to show love, family, gratitude, cook some good food. And it's okay if you buy your kids 4 things that they needed and they cherish, but teach them how to love, right?
Yeah. Fellowship. And one of the things like I would do if you're going to go shopping is to take it in cash. So I put the debit cards, the credit cards to the side. So when I take out cash, I know when I ran out of $500 because I don't have anything else in my pocket.
Right.
To swipe, like you forget, because you have limit to based on your limit until it say decline. That's how I know that I can stay on budget.
Right.
I just pay everything in cash, and when I'm out of cash, I'll be like, yo, I just went through such and such amount of money.
Right.
I got to go back to the bank. But when I'm just swiping, then it just becomes imaginary for me. But for Christmas, like what you want to do is ask the child like what they need. And then it kind of goes on needs versus wants.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone wants this, but what you really need? And are you really going to play with it? Are you going to enjoy it? But what if you invested into experiences? And like now we're setting up like we're about to do Christmas photos. and therefore you're capturing the moment, you're living in the moment. But sometimes what a person wants is just a little time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the gift. Like, you're trying to buy them love. Like, no, it's not going to get it.
That's cool that you said that, because for Thanksgiving, life has been challenging and wonderful and blessed all at the same time. It's like a perfect storm. But for Thanksgiving, my daughters, they just wanted to chill and be with me at home. They were okay with just whatever it was that we had in the fridge. They just wanted to chill and relax and just be with me.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. So that can also be you this holiday season. But you mentioned earlier something about budgeting per person. Did you talk about that?
Yeah. So budgeting per person, like even with Christmas, if you had a budget, and everyone knows Christmas every year, the date doesn't change, December 25th.
It's coming every year.
Right. So at the beginning of the year, you may determine what your budget is for Christmas, for the next Christmas. And you set that aside. And what I like to do is I like to have the money come out of my account, go to another bank account where I don't have checks, I don't have a debit card, and it's going to be very inconvenient to go get that money.
Yes,
Navy
I love
Federal.
it.
Right.
And Southside Community Federal Credit Union, right on 54th and Wentworth. They only open 3 days a week.
There you go. Right. And they have some of the best rates. Second guarantee rate.
We're going to charge y'all that. We're going to charge you for the bank for that.
But therefore, so if you're $1,200 a budget, then you just send $100 a month. And now you can divide it up. If I have 5 kids, I can be like, all right, well, you get 200, you get 350, you get 400. That is your budget. But $1,200 is our max for the family. So if you want this, show me how it works in your budget. And that's not me saying no. It's just show me how it works in your budget.
You made a very important point. I think that in our classes, we want to give our kids everything we didn't have, or we might overexpose ourselves. Sometimes now these children that's their expectation. Now we need to remind them that we're the ones in charge, and it is okay. So in my opinion, it is okay to sit down with your family and set up limitations. You do not need their permission, but you do want some cohesiveness in your circle, in your household.
Right.
And it's okay to tell them we're going to do things a little differently this year, as I've already told my family.
Yes.
I said, we're going to do things a little different this year. I'm probably not going to go out because everyone has a gift under my tree. Okay. It doesn't matter if I didn't even know you was coming. There is something under there for you. This year.
Even me?
Even for you.
No.
Come on over for Christmas dinner.
Even for you.
I'm just here to get my gift.
But that is going to change a little bit this year, not because I do budget for Christmas, but only because I see my giving and charity has to maximize. I want to go on an explosive level. So what we're doing this year is everybody gets a smaller gift, and then we are creating care packages with jointly with a foundation I'm a part of. We're creating care packages for those in need. That's how I'm switching up my Christmas. But my family dynamic is a little different. I have that power and passion with my family. They believe in it. Right. How do you have a conversation with a child who may not be the best student, who has an attitude problem, and is already looking forward to, that's the only satisfaction.
And they think they're supposed to get it because their friend mother brought it.
What kind of conversation do you have with that kind of dynamic with somebody in your household? Or how about a spouse who's expecting an upgrade on a new car?
Yeah.
They want that Louis bag. I got a friend like that.
So how do you open those kind of conversations?
So when my children ask for something, I tell them the way to get a yes out of me. And these are the things that you have to do. And if you haven't done those things, then it's a no. So we have a whole checklist upstairs of what you need to do to get ready in the morning. All right. We have apps of your grades, missing assignments here. You need to correct this. You need to do that. If you don't, then the answer with me is it's already a no until you go correct that, because I'm not rewarding you to be average.
I'm not rewarding you to be mediocre.
We weren't destined to be average. And sometimes it's a lot easier to kind of fit in, but to be ordinary, extraordinary is a little bit different. And that's what I'm raising them to be, because I may not be here. Like my dad died at 51.
Wow.
Heart attack, right? You won't catch me like that. I'm in the gym. Hey, we got to be here. 6 o'clock, I'm at the gym. I'm going to do my workout, and now my kids see it. So now my daughter be like, hey, we got to get our push-ups in today. Like, absolutely. Yes. We watched the Bears game on the floor. How many push-ups can we do within a quarter? All right. The sugary drinks. All right. Let's cut that out. So once you kind of lead by example, like you can't have a conversation with someone and you over here doing things unhealthy that's what wasting your money, or they see you with this name brand stuff. And it's funny that when you don't have a lot, then we strive to buy these bags and people still think it's phony because you don't have a lot.
Right.
But
and then the person that's making the money with the phony bag, they think it's real.
Exactly. right. So I can just not even get into that because that's not my realm. That's not who I am trying to impress.
So what about the children that I want to have this iPhone, I want to have these new Jordans. Mm-hmm. What is the step to saying if they're willing to work for it, right? Mm-hmm. How do we do that? Because I think the problem with me, like for my first child, I didn't make him work or do anything. The second child is a little different, right? Because she's coming up, she's under me. It's just every child is different. Yeah. So she wants to work. So I never made the first child work. But then when I cut him off a little bit, he ended up coming up with a little drop shipping business.
There we go.
He made enough money to get him through it. So now he wants a pair of $1,397 gym shoes. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But in my mind, I said it. And he came back and he said, well, maybe I shouldn't want a $1,300 pair of shoes that I'm not going to use anymore. Yeah. So how can we get our kids, and is it wrong to get our kids to work for what they want? So if they go and make $1,500 and they want to spend $1,500, should we put them into that 30%, 70% rule as well?
Yeah. My children, they started cutting grass. And out there, they were making $75. Same thing. I would take them to the bank because I want them to see how to fill out a deposit slip. You deposit your 70%, you get your 30%. I can't tell you how to spend that 30%. Wow. But I'm in control of the 70%.
So you got to do a lot of extra grasses because you only get 30%.
It goes right into their custodial account, and you don't get access to that until you're 18. Right?
Oh, my God.
So 30% after the 18% the government taking?
They get cash. They get cash.
Okay. I mean, but that's okay because we're talking about people who should have, for that scenario, people who have limited budgets to begin with, right? So his children really don't have to pay a mortgage. They don't have to pay bills or whatnot.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me tell you a story. So I screen my tenants. Now, here's the thing. Like if a tenant is going to tell me, hey, they late on the rent, then I'd be like, oh, okay, you late on the rent? You see the game last night? They'd be like, yeah, it was a good game. You saw it? Mm-mm. But I know that game was on cable. And if your cable on and my money not in my account, we got problems. So now you putting cable as a higher priority. Like
then
make me top priority.
Then your house.
Because I'm
then
the one
shelter.
Controlling all of this stuff, right?
But that is our world, y'all. I don't know what we're going to do with it, especially during a time when everything is so expensive. And I used to get tired of my daddy telling me how a sneaker used to be 25 cents.
Yes.
Like, I was tired of hearing those stories. And now I'm going back when a pack of sunflower seeds was 10%, with 10 cents. Where you could get a snowball for a quarter and now they're $1. Like, we are living in a very expensive world. So it's kind of like... I feel like people gonna stay married longer now. Like people need each other to survive during these times. So I think the mentality of what we need to do with our money and our priorities is so much more important than later than it was before. Because now, on top of you having to try to get in that 30-70, you also have to figure out how you're gonna deal with the inflation that we're going through right now.
Right.
And then people think real estate is something that they have to do, maybe because somebody on Instagram, or like you said, they talk themselves out of it. But real estate is something that is required to retire. Like you don't want to be paying somebody's rent at 80 years old.
You don't
because
want that.
You didn't buy anything, and now your house isn't free and clear, and now your taxes aren't frozen. The system is set up for you to own in order to be able to make it.
There's so much resistance for people who have a mindset of, I don't want to own. I'm always going to owe tax. That's too much interest. I'm always going to have a payment. Even when I pay it off, I still got to pay taxes.
But how are we going to fix that?
I mean, it's a very limited mentality.
But we need people like James to fix it. African-American home ownership has been the exact same percentage since 1978.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how we're going to change that.
But listen, Hispanic home ownership continues to rise every single year. You know what I'm saying? So there's,
and that's amazing. So we got
it's
to bridge the gap of
right,
what's happening over there and what's not happening over here. And I think we're talking ourselves out of our own success. Like we are physically on the phone trying to find people to give us advice that don't own a home, to tell us why we shouldn't own a home, when you should be talking to the person that owns the home.
Right.
So we got to figure out what we're going to do with this, guys, because we are not even going to be able to live in Inglewood in a little while.
Yeah.
Right.
Like every neighborhood is changed, and we can't even afford to live in the places where we were born and raised.
As you heard from our guest, when everybody was scared to purchase or everybody's scared about interest rates, he's still buying doors. He bought the most amount of doors in the last, Natasha asked, have you owned the most amount of properties in the last 5 years? He said, as a matter of fact, since the pandemic to now is when I acquired the most amount of properties.
Because it's that mindset.
Yeah.
It's that mindset. Can you afford the property? Right? Because just like interest rates are up, rent is up.
Yes.
Right?
Very.
Can you afford the property? And if you can't afford the property, it doesn't matter about the interest rate, because guess what? If you live there for 30 years and you pay it off, now that house is free and clear and you have an asset. You have something that's appreciating, and you have a tag stamp on what you put your money into, because you get 0% return on paying rent.
Yeah.
And we're not going to turn this into a mortgage session,
But getting back to him, he gave one excellent, first step. Know how much you make.
Yes. Yep.
Look at that pay stub. Oh, no, that wasn't the first step. First step, figure out how much it costs to be you. Number 2, figure out how much you make. Look at your pay stub. Look at net income. I had a young lady, we eventually closed. She sent a pay stub. It had a garnishment she didn't even know about because she didn't even check. It's a garnishment for $497. I will know if there's an extra $497 coming out of my paycheck.
But people really don't, because they working a lot of overtime. They got a lot of different moving parts on their check.
She didn't even check how much her deposit was on her bank. When she sends us the the pay stub, and we point out to her that there is a garnishment, that's when she got in line with HR. So number 1, find out what it costs to be you. Number 2, look at your pay stub. Figure out how much you pay, how much you earn. Net earnings or gross?
Net.
And would you say number 3 is find out how much you need to be able to make to master step 1 and step 2?
I would. And then when you have that short, then that's when something you're good at, your gift. Like, what is your gift? And can you monetize on your gift? And whatever it may be, my landscaper makes 6 figures.
Yeah.
You know, my person that does my driveway made $200,000 last year. Cleaning gutters, like washing windows, like all of these things that you kind of overlook. Like, there is money to be made. Like, a person can be walking down the street and be like, "Oh, we in your building. Like, hey, can I clean this for you?" And they'd be like, "Sure. I need to have it clean. I need to have my windows washed." You know, it's just like, I don't want to bring up laundry, but but I love laundry. Coinomatic's in my building. It makes so much cash. I have a cooler, and I know once that cooler get filled up, it's all quarters. It's $1,500 a quarters in there.
Wow.
And
From your rentals.
That's right.
So
That could be my savings.
Always
That
find a way.
for my investors out there, get into some coin laundry in your properties.
Yep. Storage, garage space, multiple streams of income under one roof. That's why I always preach buying multifamily buildings over single family homes.
Find out what you already have to get you where you're going.
Yeah.
And this space right now we're in, this is an empty space. We were never using it. It's for my business. And what did we do? We turned it into peer space.
Yes.
And we receive a good $3,000 every month on rentals, right? And that was because the market switched. So I had to look into see what I already had going on that could make me some more money to afford the life that I wrote down on that paper. So my thing is that sometimes it's right there for you. And sometimes you have a kid at home that's 21 that you feel like they don't need to work. So you're letting them just sit in the house every day. But if you write your bills down, now you can say, okay, Jack or John, I need you to go at least make me $500 a month. So that way I can meet my goal on this paper today. So we got to get in the mindset of figuring out how are we going to master this, guys, because It is insane, crazy. And we see what we see every day.
Right.
I close over 300 loans a year, right? So I see it every single
see
day.
it.
And I do what I do, not for money. I do what I do because I want to be the person intercepting the data so that way I can help people. I'm not going to do your loan if it doesn't make sense.
If it doesn't.
Do you know how many people called me last week to refinance before Christmas to take out $50,000 when their current interest rate is 2.5? And they're gonna take an 8% just to get the $60,000 so they can go do whatever they're trying to do with Christmas, or it doesn't make sense. So when we talk to these clients about that, we got to put them in a situation where it makes sense. But we could go on and on and on about.
I wanted to visit one more thing though, and also we neglected to talk about liabilities. Actually, writing that stuff down in a spreadsheet. Do you also recommend when after they go on their annualcreditreport.com? How would you recommend that all of their liabilities are being addressed, though? Because we're only going off of what's a credit report, and then what else? Because I know there's way more.
That's what we see. We don't see cash.
But we want a collective. We want to buckle down.
Yep. Groceries, like every cent that goes out, you need to write it down. Like
hair, nails.
Parking. Yeah, exactly. So even for me, like I got into it. Like, hey, you know what? A haircut now is like $40. I can start cutting my own hair. Right?
My husband do that.
I can save $200 just like that. Just cutting my hair. And I'm cutting weekly. Sometimes I cut 3. I cut my hair this morning just to look fresh.
Hey, thank you.
So
we appreciate that.
It's just like, it's little things that you can do. Like I know people who make beads, and I know people who dress up gym shoes. Like they're like, although we can say like, hey, stuff is not 10 cents anymore. Now we live in a society of social media where we can create our own job, and people are willing to pay for anything because one, maybe they're lazy, or two, because hey, they got extra cash and they'll trust you.
Because they're not on the 70-30 rule. They got some more to spend.
But how about people who don't know their talent?
I just did a post. I said, what is your gift? Like, what's your passion? And some people put, hey, interior decorator, designer. I'm great with makeup. I'm great with hair. I'm great with jewelry. I'm great with cleaning. I'm good with washing cars. One of my good buddies, he had a mobile car wash. He would come to your house and wash and wax your car. And he did 6 figures washing cars.
Because they try to charge me $140 to wash the car.
Right.
Yep.
So when I was in high school, I worked at my local car wash. I was cleaning up cars in the alley. Pull up in the garage, heat the garage, wax cars there. So if you pay $140, I can be like, all right, I'll do $100. Now, if I just did 12 cars a month, which ain't really aggressive, I got $1,200 extra, $14,400 a year.
Wow.
But let's talk about something else you did. Because you also wrote some books, right?
Yes.
I love this part. I've been looking forward to this part. I purposely didn't look at them because I wanted to see.
Right. So we have 2 books here. Trip to the Building. Tell us a little bit about your books.
Yep. So this was like, remember when I was saying like for the children, you would buy an investment property for them, where I documented the process of what it looks like to go to the building, to collect the rent, to make repairs, to write eviction notices, and the generational wealth and starting your own business. And then my daughter, she has another book about budgeting. This is her activity book.
And how old is your daughter?
She's 9.
9 years old, and she has a book.
So this is her book. This is her activity book. And as I went over things like how I learned multiplication was my mom used to be a cashier, and she used to be a manager for my other uncle's car wash. And I started looking at, hey, it's 50 cents and a roll of pennies. A roll of nickels is $2. All right, dimes is 5, quarters is 10. And I just started doing math like that. So everyone's favorite game, at least for me, was Monopoly. So it was like, let me be my own bank. So I would kind of set my money up there. I would roll my own coins. But I have skip counting in there to kind of teach you multiplication. And then it's like word searches. And then it's like doing math. Like if a tenant owes you $650 and you got 2 units, like what is the rent going to be? And then it talks about debt, and it talks about credit card, everything that people should have discussions with. But then in the end, it gets a little technical, because then it's like you got to bring your parents in, because this is a little bit complicated for you. But now it's a family exercise.
I think, and I'm not... I'm saying this with the most sincere heart. I think there's so many adults that could probably start by using this based on the kind of conversations.
And don't feel bad about it.
I mean, it's the truth, because I'm just looking at the context is blowing my mind. The table of contents. I think there's some adults that need to start. This is the level they need to start.
Yeah.
Because we got a lot of financially immature people making a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So,
and then where can they purchase this book? Like,
so that one is on the website. It's under their website, triptothebuilding.com. It's also on Amazon. All the books are on Amazon. They have their own website if they want to sell them. But you're absolutely right. Like, the discussions need to happen now. Otherwise, you're going to regret it.
And these are some very inexpensive Christmas gifts, guys, that can actually pay off, and you can spend time with your kids and teach them. Yeah. Now, you did say your 9-year-old daughter wrote this book. So if somebody was on here watching, when they see things on Instagram and podcasts, they just think that we're just talking, right? So if somebody goes to work every single day, they make minimum wage, $20 an hour. They didn't get the education or whatever, but they gave the education to their kids, and they didn't do the 30-70 because they spent all of their money to invest in their kid. And that's what happens in our community a lot. How would you advise somebody that has that genius kid at home, that's super intellectual, that can probably write a book, right? Like, and maybe that's their source of that additional income. Right. What advice would you give to them to be able to utilize their child, or the child to utilize themselves, to create a stream of income like this by writing a book?
I would say this: everyone has a story, right? And when you're thinking about your life, you start to kind of write it down. And now with the internet, things have gotten so much easier with AI, artificial intelligence, in writing the books and illustrating the book. And now these kids they're so more familiar with technology. They can write the book, but you have to challenge them to do it. And then you have to show them, like, the return on investment. Because some people be like, oh, my story's not interesting. I'm like, sure it is.
It might be interesting.
It's not interesting to you, but it's interesting to someone else. And someone else needs to know how you got here. And someone else needs to know, like, what their pothole is, so they don't fall in that same pothole, and they can kind of go around it. And you leaving a blueprint, because our time on here, this earth, is kind of limited, right? And then we kind of go into, hey, you are leaving your children these finances, but you're not teaching them how to receive it. Ooh, gosh. Right? And then
Natasha
if they don't know how to receive it, then you kind of set up the living trust, and I can orchestrate all of this stuff from my grave through my living trust. Right?
Exactly. And that's going to be coming to you soon on Stand on Your Business podcast.
I do want to say, we were so fortunate to have you here today.
Appreciate you.
I'm excited about that, because you're so gracious just by sharing all this knowledge with us. And we can't keep it to ourselves. Like, you just gave us half an hour of some gems. Where can everyone find you?
I'm jamesmorrisjr.com. I'm Landlord Chronicles on Instagram and Facebook, and also James Morris on Facebook also.
Awesome. And then if somebody had to utilize your services, that's something you do as it relates to coaching and things like that?
Yes. I do financial literacy and real estate coaching calls. And my uncle always said this. He said, everything you did in life, it don't mean anything if you didn't bring someone with you. So this is me giving back, and I'm just saying real estate is easy, and I can make it easy. I've been doing it for 25 years. They've been doing it since 74. It's easy. And as my uncle would say, if I was able to do it with a high school education, then why can't you do it?
Got you. And watch this out, guys. I own probably 7 businesses, multiple streams of income, but I am going to be scheduling my coaching call because I can never get too much information, and you should too, because every day we're going to be working with you to take you and yourself to the next level by standing on your business. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, James, for checking us out.
Appreciate you all having me. Love it.
Thank you. One last thing, though. We want to make an announcement. So this is our new logo. Shout out to our designer. Thank you so much. We're not going to give you that secret yet.
Next time. See you guys soon.